always said that this is perhaps the greatest risk any of us would take, is to be truly seen as we are. I think one of the scariest things I've ever done was hit record on my first podcast. Here I am. My name is Heather Simcoe. I am the founder of Valor Vixens, and it has been a long road getting here. Lots of research, and the first podcast of introducing who I am, why I'm here, and starting this journey of self-improvement and conquering our lives one day at a time together. Started my journey growing up in California. I think that the best thing to do in life is to give background as to who we are, because all we have is our own journeys to share. And so that's what I'm going to be doing here today. Just who I am, where I came from, why I'm here, and what I'm doing this for, and why. Why me? So growing up in California, my parents were teenagers when they gave birth to me. My mom, funny enough, had lied because she wanted to marry my dad at the time and said that she was pregnant. Unfortunately, that lie was actually the truth, and here I am. My parents were married. Obviously, when you're that young, eyes are full of stars and reality sets in, and that dissolved within a couple of years. And my upbringing would then be taken over by my dad, lots of moving around. And by the time I was 4, I would not end up seeing my mother again for a very, very long time, which is also part of my journey that I'll be sharing with you throughout many podcasts and getting to know me. So lots of family members, most of my family on that side had barely made it through high school without getting pregnant, and lots of chains to break. So here I am, probably 2 to 4 years old, living with my dad and my aunts and my cousins, bouncing from house to house, and eventually moving in with my grandparents by the time I'm 4 years old. Getting spoiled a bit because I was the first granddaughter. And so next door, my dad meets what would be the mother that I would grow up with for most of my life. And they got married. Again, another shotgun wedding. It was one of those, you get old enough to do the math and you realize, oh gosh, my dad has a habit of some shotgun weddings, which is his own story, but part of my own as well. And so I grew up and my life would become very much like Cinderella, which is where I started this quote at the beginning of the podcast, the live action movie. And that quote, the first time I heard it, just brought tears to my eyes. And part of my journey has just been revealing the masks, taking them off one at a time, and letting people know me for who I am. And part of learning how to put the masks up was my upbringing. Being raised by very, very young people. My stepmother was only 14 years older than me, my dad 20 years older, and they were just kids, raising kids really. And so they did the best they could with what they had to work with, which were their own shortcomings and their own upbringing and problems to work through. And again, this is all going to be par for the course for us to learn together and grow together, and how I've come to where I am now in such a calm and forgiving demeanor about the tumultuous, always a fun word to try and say, upbringing that I went through. And so, again, grew up with a stepmother and my dad. They ended up staying together the whole time, my entire childhood, but part of that journey was having my real mother cut out of my life. And again, part of my journey, we have reconciled and reconnected in my 20s, but for a while, my whole childhood, I did not know her, kind of forgot what she looked like, and ended up with 2 younger half-brothers, and growing up in very much a Cinderella-like upbringing, where I was taught to lie that my stepmother was my real mom. We were very geographical. I'd be in a new school every single year, and just learning how to keep everyone at an arm's distance, because I never knew when I was going to move again. Pets were disposable, houses were disposable. Pretty much everything could change at the drop of the hat, and stability was actually uncomfortable. chaos was my comfort zone. And my parents also owned their own business my whole life, a spot repair business in California, which, hey, it's a great place to be doing that. And they built that from the ground up. My stepmother would try and continue going to college throughout my entire upbringing because she didn't finish college. And my dad worked, they were self employed, and I got that bug of the entrepreneurial self employment drive from a very young age, where I would help answer phones, file paperwork, understand a very specific work ethic that comes from a family business and what that looks like. But California was an interesting place to grow up. I was in the Silicon Valley. I call it Nerdville now, the invent of IBM, and in San Jose, where IBM, the road into IBM was Poughkeepsie Lane. Funny enough, my journey would put me in Poughkeepsie, as my stepmother was from New York. And so my upbringing was from a New York stepmom and a California dad. So I had quite the dichotomy of parenting, to say the least. And so my dad was very busy working all the time. My stepmother, again, did the best of what she could, but had her own shortcomings from what she had growing up from a single mom, and her own journey of what she had to go through. And part of my path and my journey is alcoholism. And I did not understand that my dad struggled from alcoholism basically my entire life. And what that looked like behind closed doors or in front of me, I didn't truly understand until actually very recently. Now that I'm 44, certain pictures of my 4-year-old life became much more clear that I really had no idea until very recently. But I learned some very clean and clear survival tactics because it wasn't physically abusive, it was just very mentally abusive. Being told I was less than, lots of name calling. I was mom number 2. Lots of just, cleaning up afterward. And that was my general upbringing in a nutshell, with the combined self-employment angle of family. So what was very interesting is, as tumultuous as life was, we always took Sundays off as families. I remember Christmases and certain holidays were always try to be present to us as best as possible. But a lot of that was keeping up face for everyone around us. And very interesting upbringing when you get used to being told how to feel rather than being allowed to show how you actually feel. And like I said, understanding alcoholism, I have a complete different understanding of what my stepmother went through and my dad's struggles in my adult life, that a lot of things become clear once you're an adult that you don't necessarily understand that are going on. And I was so focused on getting out of my household that I really didn't honestly kind of care necessarily what they were going through, because I just needed to get out. And in high school, that was my main goal. And part of my journey is recovery. I was also generally very good at sports. I danced from the time I was 4 till 12, tap dance, acrobatics, that kind of stuff. But it was derailed when finances got tight. I was always the first on the chopping block. Whether it was my activity, the time, anything that needed to be cut out was always mine first before anyone else's, and it was always about my brothers. So that resentment was pretty well embedded at a very early age, especially when I couldn't do certain things because I either had to watch them or clean up after them or whatever the case is. And interestingly enough, even being a family business, I started my own business at 11, not realizing that I had this self-employment mindset embedded in me from such a young age, babysitting from the time I was 11. Always loved kids. Wanted to be a pediatrician when I was in middle school. I had my heart set on going to Stanford and becoming a pediatrician, and was a neighborhood babysitter. I got to go on vacations I got paid to go on vacations with families away from my family. So it was a double vacation, a couple times to Lake Tahoe, which was such an amazing experience to go through. And I was the head babysitter of my neighborhood, where it was first come, first serve. I mean, I was booked almost every weekend, which was amazing. So earning cash over fist and just doing that, and Having a way out on my weekends was always a wonderful experience. And I also had my first job at a video store. Yes, VHS, back when we used to actually rent those out. It wasn't Blockbuster as an alternate store, but that was my first real job. And just so funny to think about that upbringing and saving for college and just trying to balance work and community service and all those things. But so many fears in my life that I had to get over. I was terrified of the water. I didn't learn how to swim until I was 10. And then by the time I learned how to swim when I was 10, then I joined a swim team. And it's my MO. I go from not knowing how to do it to competing in it immediately. And one of my character defects that I've definitely had to work on over the years. So fast forward to high school and I'm on the swim team in high school. That doesn't work out. I just focus on schoolwork. And by the time I'm off the swim team, my ninth grade year, I end up that summer. I had a best friend at the time who was kind of an army brat. And back when we wrote letters to people before emails, before the world of technology, imagine that. She wrote me a letter and I left it on the stairs. It was just so stupid that I even did this. And very few people were allowed to come over to my house because my stepmother had kind of a tight leash on everyone to kind of keep the front up of whatever was going on behind closed doors, which is very common among families. Don't tell this, don't tell people that, so that was generally the MO of our family. And this friend had the opportunity to kind of see behind closed doors how things really worked. And my stepmother was very overweight growing up. And, but especially before, that was super, super common. And she wrote me a letter, and in it said, how are things going with Mama the Hutt? And most of you, I'm sure, have seen Star Wars with Jabba the Hutt. And my stepmother sees this letter, loses it, completely loses it, and forbids me from seeing this friend ever again, out of obviously pure hurt. Like, who wants to be called Mama the Hutt when you're wearing a 3X and having some teenage girl who hasn't had this problem yet call her out? And so again, trying to control the world around me, she forbade me from seeing her again. But this journey with this friend was so interesting my freshman year because we'd met on the swim team and we both had boyfriends, did the whole normal teenage thing. And but she was the first one to bring me to a church. Like, I grew up with my grandparents. I used to go to church with my grandparents on Sundays, which I remember just being really fun, rolling down the hill, grass stains on my knees, all the normal stuff, kid church and songs and all that stuff. And just very, just good memories overall. And it felt like a safe place, especially in a world where I didn't really have much of that. And so moving forward, I'm in with my friend. She introduces me to her church. At this point, I don't really remember what denomination was, but I went to youth group with her. I'm surprised my stepmother even let me. And then again, Lake Tahoe, because those of you in California who've been there, believe me, it's such a gorgeous place. And they had a youth group trip to Lake Tahoe. I was like, wow. Yeah, I mean, it seemed to be my getaway now that I look back on it. Three trips away from my family in Lake Tahoe. And I'm on this youth group trip, and we're in, the typical stuff, the prayer, circle at the end of one of the nights. And I just remember sitting there and feeling enveloped with peace and calm, which I really didn't have in my life at all whatsoever, especially at that time. And it was just always chaos all the time. Parents fighting, just, typical dysfunctional family nonsense. And I come home and I am high on the Holy Spirit. It truly was. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I love church. And my stepmother shot that down so fast. You are not going to come home Bible thumping with your kumbaya and your braids and tell me that, you're a Jesus believing, Bible thumping kid now. It's like, okay. Kind of in retrospect, like, if anything a teenage girl's going to be into is to be like, I love Jesus. It's so funny that was taken from me because she couldn't control it. It just, it was what it was. But it planted a mustard seed for me. And I also grew up in an area where Mormonism was super, super common. And I have my own beliefs on that, and I'm not going to try and offend anyone by it. But at the same time, I just remember at the time some of the people I met, they were some of the nicest, most genuinely loving people in my life. And their beliefs were usually like made me cock my head and go, okay, that sounds a little strange. But they were, aside from all of that, they were just really genuinely nice people. And so I had all that experience my freshman year. But the minute going back to the mom of the hut scenario that happened, is that was the beginning of what I would consider my addiction. I couldn't control anything else in my life, so I went to food. Food was my first drug of choice. And that summer, I went from being athletic, in shape, swim team, to 40 pounds in one summer. And if anyone knows anything about high school summer vacations, it might be 6 weeks, 2 months tops. And I just put on a ton of weight. And I went to a high school where there were literally girls who were on covers of magazines at my school. They were models. It was just not common to be overweight. Like it really was not at the time. And super nerd. I just doubled down. I also, I'm in a school with kids who are basically first generation, fresh off the boat, whose parents are, IBM engineers, doctors, lawyers. So I was engulfed in an environment where everyone was just so study oriented to go to college, and Ivy League or whatever the case is. Everyone just has really super high goals, and my competitive nature, thank God, just kept me going. And I knew that if I was going to get anywhere in life, college was my ticket out. So I focused on school as much as I could, considering babysitting and the lifestyle I had at home. I knew my goal was to get into college. And honestly, surprisingly, looking back, my stepmother really pushed me where I needed it the most. Like, if I always got A's and B's. I was one of those kids. I'm a people pleaser. And I got a C in chemistry. Oh, that class was a nightmare. I love math, but that just did not compute in my brain. And so I had to get a tutor. She literally took everything away from me. Doubled down, worked really hard, finally got through that class. And I was still on the point at which I wanted to become a pediatrician. By the time I hit AP biology, and I'm surrounded by, oh my gosh, some of the brightest people in the world. They were like Harvard bound, Stanford bound, UCLA. I mean, you name a high level college, they're on track to go there. We had so many perfect scores for the SATs, I stopped announcing them because there were too many. We didn't even have we're Valor Vixens, a valedictorian, because there were too many. We couldn't choose one because I think we had 16 that tied for the first place out of 400 some odd students. That's the kind of academic school that I went to. And even when it came to sports, we had people who went to professional leagues. So it was a very high caliber public school where I went in high school, considering it was California education. But I lucked out. Apparently God had me even then. And I was in the right place at the right time. And so by the time I hit AP biology, and I'm like looking around, I'll never forget it. I was sitting in class one day and they're talking about amino acids or something, I don't even know, some kind of topic, and my brain just went mush. I think everything looked like Chinese to me at that time. And I was like, yeah, nope, I'm going to kill somebody. I need to switch gears and figure out what else to do with my life. And we used to have career days, and so I'm like, maybe interior design, maybe fashion. I love to draw. I was very artistic. My grandmother was an artist, taught me how to paint. I was into all of that. And at the time, my stepmother was going back to college to become a teacher. And me, with my love of kids, I went from wanting to be a pediatrician to a nurse to finally, okay, teacher. That fits my personality, great. My mother's dream, on track, blah, 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 move forward. And so I pushed through high school. I'm getting good grades, just, good enough, well enough. SAT scored kind of embarrassing now, but enough to get through. And in California, there's no need. My family didn't have the money for it at the time. I never flew anywhere. Anytime we went anywhere, we drove. We drove to Disneyland. We drive to Lake Tahoe. We drive to Oregon. Any vacations we went on, we always drove. And so finally, my stepmother being from New York, her cousin was getting married in October. And so we decided we're going to go. doubled down on saving money, eating mac and cheese and hot dogs and whatever it took to scrimp and save to buy plane tickets to go to New York for the first time. And in my world, growing up in California, it seems so far away and everything's so magical because you see everything on the movies. You live so far away and it's such a closed world. No, it's TV. There was no internet, nothing. We don't have social media like we do today. And I just couldn't believe, I'm like, wow, this California girl's finally going to New York. So here I'm a senior in high school on a plane for the first time at 17 years old, which is freaking hilarious. And so we land, and the wedding, it's in October. And how do you not fall in love with New York, Hudson Valley, when the leaves are changing? I mean, I'd never seen anything like that in my life. California's brown or green. You get two colors. That's pretty much it. You're lucky if it rains enough half of the year. So, here I am seeing colors in the world I'd never even discovered before in my life, aside from a TV show or a movie. And we go to the wedding, and then we go to New York City, and it's such a magical place. And so I go back home, and everything's brown. Like, I almost cried. This is not the first time in my life this has happened, transferring from one state to another. I'll get to that part of my journey. But anyway, so we land there, and finally we get back, and my stepmother and my dad talk it out and decide that we're going to move to New York after my senior year. And I'm like, okay, great. But see, my stepmother's still in college. I'm like, oh, great. So I applied to colleges, getting some really good colleges in California. I could have gone to other places. I found out my biological mom, who, again, I'll get to the point where we reconnected. Her father was the head of the engineering department at Cal Poly. I didn't apply there, but I could have. UC Santa Barbara. I got into some great colleges in California, UC Santa Clara, a few of them. And then I applied in New York, New Paltz and Marist College. And so I get into all these 4 or 5 colleges, which now, like I said, looking back at my SAT scores, I mean, I had good grades and I did very well overall. I had a good transcript and whatnot. But I got into the 2 New York colleges, and my stepmother says, I'm going to New Paltz. And so I go, yeah, no, I'm not going to college with my stepmother. Out of the question. That is not happening. Like, you're not going to share classes with your stepmom. Like, this is weird. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to Marist, because when we visited, everyone's on the green, playing Frisbee. It's a gorgeous campus. And so, like, that's it. That's where I'm going. And so we end up, my parents sell their business, we pack up and head cross country, 2 dogs, 2 younger brothers, an SUV, and a U-Haul truck, and take a week to drive. And here I am navigating, we're Motel 6ing, we have actual maps where I'm scaling out old school way, like I said, I'm showing my age, mapping out our destination from one Motel 6 to the next, and we make our way cross country, and I start college. And my parents, we moved into, I don't know, her cousin's apartment or something like that. And I'm on a cot in the living room, and her cousins lost their minds. Step in. My stepmother goes back to hanging out with her high school friends. And I've just had it. I'm like, I did not move all the way across country to babysit my brothers when I'm in college. Like, I'm the one who's supposed to be making stupid mistakes, going to parties, not my stepmother. And about 3 weeks into the semester, I move out, and I'm in the dorm. When I finally go to college, I also meet what would become my future sister-in-law. And I meet her, and, she's got big feet. Someone's making fun of her. I defend her, and that was it. She had a car. I didn't have a driver's license. We'll get back to that at some other point. But my stepmother found out some colorful information about me and punished me by taking away my prom, my driver's license. So I drove cross country with my parents. I did not drive. They drove. So I didn't have a driver's license, a car, or anything. So I moved into the dorms with $400 to my name, and no car, no driver's license. And that's it. I was out on my own at 17 years old at that point. So I'd go home a few more times, but they really didn't make any more room for me at that point. It was pretty much done on my own. And realizing I'm homeless at 17, when I look back, I'm like, dorm life, you usually go back home like you have a house. I did not. So anyway, so my sister-in-law, or best friend at the time, has a car and house. And so we have the best symbiotic relationship where, here I am in the Hudson Valley, which at the time was not very well developed. So finding a grocery store was like a half hour away. I need shampoo and basic necessities. So she'd take me to the grocery store. I worked whatever jobs I could on campus. I go to her house for a home cooked meal, and she'd come to the dorm to get away from her family. So it was a well-working relationship. And so within the first few weeks of meeting her, she's like, meet my brother. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I found out the Alanis Morissette song, he's married. And so when I first saw him, it was love at first sight. But here I was, freshman year in college, and barely even 18. And here's the man of my dreams teaching this martial arts class on my college campus. I'm like, okay, whatever, fine. Out of the picture, out of my league, never mind, fine. So I'll just oogle from afar. And she would work at his gym from time to time. And so I'd get to sneak a peek, and he'd be teaching classes at the time where now UFC is so popular. But back then it was just a bunch of guys in the back of a warehouse, like beating each other up. So what's mainstream now is so brand new 25 years ago or whatever. So anyway, year later, he's getting a divorce, and my sister-in-law goes, oh, he's leaving his wife. I'm like, oh, really? Thinks you're cute. I'm like, oh, really? And so 25 years later, here we are still together, and we started our journey together just on our own journey, building our own business. And I still went to college, and I was going to become a teacher, and so I helped him build his business and went to school, and we had this pact, like, fine, one of us is always going to be, might not necessarily be stable, but the other one is going to have the stable job. So we'd take turns. And so he'd have his business, which would be ups and downs, and I would be teaching. So he helped drive me to school, and I got my driver's license finally, my first car. And by the time I think it's my second year in college or so, I finally demand to ask for my mother's information. I reconnect with her, and here I am finally at 20, 21 years old, meeting my mom for the first time since I was 4. And again, she's super young and has been out on her own in life with her own journey and, her own speed bumps in her own life. And so we reconnect, and I kind of have to reteach my parents how to teach me. And I eventually got to the point with my dad where I told him, I said, if you lie to me one more time, you're not going to, we finally were getting engaged. And I said, you're not going to walk me down the aisle. That's it. We're done. And he lied to me one more time, and that was it. And my mother walked me down the aisle. My husband and I worked super hard at the time to pay for our own wedding, our honeymoon. And again, I had a $300 car at one point, had one working headlight, AM radio, if you can believe it. It didn't even have a cassette player. And the cars the doors didn't lock, and it smoked uphill when you drove at 40 miles an hour. It was horrible. But it got me from A to B, so whatever, it worked. It got me where I needed to go, and to my internship and my student teaching, and I finally managed to break so many chains from previously in my life where I passed through high school without getting pregnant. I got into college. I said, okay, I want to get to college, then get married, then get a job, then have kids, maybe a house, and then kids. So, the worldly technical right order. And so I was on path to doing that. And so I graduate college, and I have a job lined up, and then we go on our honeymoon, and I get an even better job offer. And so here we are, hitting the ground running, building our business, starting my career. But all the while doing all this, what I did not understand was, once I went to college, I had my first drink at probably 17. I did not know that alcoholism ran in my family. I didn't understand. My dad struggled with it my entire life. I really didn't have an understanding of it at all. I just thought he was sick. So much got swept under the rug. I didn't know what I didn't know. And so here I am, blacking out, just doing stupid college stuff, which matched everyone else's behavior until I get into the real world, and it keeps going. And with what my husband did for a living, we knew everyone. He was in a band before, and then now we're teaching cops, and we have a martial arts school. And so my drinking just gets, I can get away with a lot, unfortunately. And I just went through a lot, which I'll get to in other stories, but just tons of trouble, things that are my gosh, looking back, I should have lost my job. There's so many things that I still can't believe I got away with, but we got to the point where I'm like, okay, so if we're going to try and have a kid, I'm going to put down the drink, and we're going to try. And so we're saving up for a house, and managed to put down the drink, and I'm just shifting my ism, I suppose, to something else, is focusing on that and getting my master's degree and finishing that out. So it was funny, we were just talking about it this morning, saving for our first house, apartment to apartment, and then finally just saving and that down payment and moving our house. And we moved our gym to the first floor and combined all of our business. We had an online business. He did instructional videos. He was one of the first people in our industry as really a forefront Americans of instructional videos and for YouTube and books and techniques of the week and all this wonderful stuff. So he was innovator in our industry, in our niche. And so we moved the gym part because there really wasn't as much money in that as our online business. And so perfect. I would go back to work. He'd take care of the kid. And so we had within 6 months, house, dog, baby. And it was my third year of teaching. So I had to get tenure and get my master's degree. And we're just doing life, and working really, really hard, proving everyone wrong. And we succeeded. We did so much together. We built our business. I was able to semi-retire by the time, 12 years ago now? And, but all the while, I ended up picking up the drink again after 4 years. So we had, while we were trying, pregnant, post-pregnancy, and then another year. And by the time my daughter was around 2, I started my journey of self-exploration and realizing that teaching might not be the best place for me. I realized I was living someone else's dream. I felt like I was in a prison. And one of my friends said it best to me at the time. She said, Heather, you realize you remind me of a butterfly trapped in a cage, and you just need to be let out. And I've just had this passion in my life since probably 25. So it's like 20 years in the making of I really want to do something that helps women, empower women, making them feel better about themselves, building them up, helping them realize their potential, and kind of filling in those gaps from brokenness from the past and really becoming the true versions of themselves. And so it's really where this journey began, and that weight gain to weight loss and getting in shape when I met my husband, because we owned a gym and he was in shape. He looked like Brad Pitt from Fight Club, and here I was, this overweight girl. And so it was like, picked up doing jujitsu and all the things that went with that and getting in shape, and really became my lifestyle. And so here we are, we're building this business and all these other wonderful things. And so by the time I hit, like I said, about 25, I found married pageants, Mrs. Pageants, and they don't need a talent because you're already juggling everything. Being a wife and anything else and juggling and balancing is a talent in itself. And so a student of mine asked me to sponsor her, give her some recommendation or something. And I realized that at the time, the Mrs. America pageant was televised still then. And I applied and I got in to try the Mrs. New York pageant. And, but I was still drinking, and I put down the drink long enough to just lose weight, get in shape, and then the resentment would start. And so I did that for a couple of years, and that didn't work. And while I was doing that, I came up with a couple ideas. Like, my husband's great at marketing, and so he came up with Fat Chicks Laugh Last, and then we had Runway for the Rest of Us, and I even developed jeans, and that'll be its own podcast. One of the biggest fails I've had it was so cool to learn how to develop them, make them, manufacture them, ship the fabric, and gosh, I still have them, a whole bunch of them in my closet. Like, oh my gosh, now 20 years later, probably. It's insane. But I was on this journey of just, heavy women, or just finding a place where you felt good in your skin no matter where you were at. And I've just bounced from, super skinny to overweight and back and forth, and just trying to find a space in the middle where I feel comfortable in my own skin. And so why I've just been so passionate about helping women feel comfortable is it's been this tug of war internally with me for so many years. And I don't know what it is. I love to work with other women and help them find and feel their true potential inside. I don't have a mother figure, I never have, but I've kind of always become everyone's mom. It's kind of been my role. And I did have a daughter. She's still here. She's almost 20. She set up all this audio equipment for me now, which is so amazing. And I got to be the mom that I never had. I really did. I got, I so many pitfalls that I put myself through, and I put her through some of the worst parts of my alcoholism. And but now that I'm over 10 years sober, I've been able to develop such an amazing relationship with her, where now that she's an adult, we're like best friends. We spend so much time together. She can tell me anything. We joke. She's got an amazing sense of humor. And so through all of that, I've just been on this journey of having this fire inside of me, trying to figure out how do I let this out? How do I move forward? How do I finally land on a place that helps me inspire other women? And so here I am in New York. We're going through all this. We're building the business. I finally, by the time it's I think 2010, finally do my third pageant. We go to Palm Springs, and now I'm like first runner-up for Mrs. North America or something like that. And my husband suffered from serious allergies, so we're back in New York. We've built, I think we were at 2 or 3 locations, and man, we really just we made it in New York. Like we were basically it in New York, and we were vacationing in Naples back and forth because my in-laws bought a condo down there, and we always worked hard, play hard. So we work really hard. We go on vacation, and we got to the point where we could bring a nanny with us on vacation, and I had a chef because we live right by the Culinary Institute, and so they poured out in droves. And oh my gosh, I look back at how much I had. It was so I don't think I truly appreciated where I was at because it was just in the throes of my addiction. And when I wasn't drinking, I was working, and when I wasn't doing one of those, it was workoutaholic. I was always transferring into something else, and so I get to the point finally where my husband's allergies are so bad. I mean, like, he's like a fish out of water every spring in New York, and so we'd have to come down to Naples, and he'd air his lungs out. He can breathe again, and we go back, and I'm like, you know what? Why are we doing this? Like, we're self-employed. Why do you keep putting yourself through this? And so we get to the point where we find an investor for 40% of our business, and he buys in, and we are like, you know what, we're just going to move to Florida. We're going to open a third location. We have the 2 in New York, bring in a shareholder. We'll just bounce back and forth when we need to, and finally move. And my daughter's elementary school closed, so it was another sign. And the market was horrible. The real estate had gone down. I mean, it was like 2010, so it was post real estate crash. And so all signs pointed to Naples. And I remember my husband crying. He's like, where am I going to get my pizza? And I'm like, I've always had the voice inside of me that when I moved from California to New York felt like home. Like I knew I needed to be there, and I felt that again in Florida. I was like, we need to be there. And so, barring all that, we realized that was the right decision. And so we go home, we pack up, and 10 days later, we are driving down here, and where I am now. We've been here for 12 years, and so we come down here, we find a house, a whirlwind. So within a month, everything's great. We buy a house and get settled, and my daughter registered for school, and all those wonderful things. But my addiction is just so heavy because down here, you can buy alcohol at drugstores. You can drive the grocery store. And so the other major part of my story is within a month of moving down here, I got rear-ended. And I had built so much of myself on paper. I built a kids program. I was doing Muay Thai. I was doing Jiu-Jitsu. And I thought the more I had on my resume, the more important I was. And we just had so many people in our lives validate our value based on our accomplishments that I never worked on my inside. I was just surface level, but truly miserable on the inside, like super depressed. Everything on that side, it looked amazing, but I just was spiritually and emotionally bankrupt on the inside. So we moved down here, and I had built a gilded prison for myself, and I did not understand why I couldn't stop drinking, even though I had everything that anyone could possibly want. And so I'm looking at my husband. He can't, we've got people knocking on the door. We went from this, like, no sidewalks and far from our neighbors up in upstate New York to here where all the kids are like, hey, can your daughter come out to play? And all this wonderful stuff. And we're like, ugh. It was a major culture shock coming down here. And so I figured my husband needs therapy, so I look for a therapist for him. And so we go, and we meet a few times, and then she eventually says, Heather, I want to see you by yourself. I'm like, okay, fine, great. We're going to figure out Gene at this point. We're going to figure him out. And so we go, and she asks me, so do you think you might be an alcoholic? And I was like, no, I have a consumption problem. If I can figure out how to control my drinking like I control my eating ice cream, I'll be just fine. And I never went back again. And so since therapy, quote unquote, didn't work, God bless her soul, man, that woman, I'm sure she's seen it a million times, but geez, I was just another statistic at the time. We're like, okay, so back to childhood memories. Like my husband was raised Catholic and the pews with his dad playing the organ, all these other things. So we're like, okay, community, we need community, maybe church. And so we start searching for churches, and finally we land on one after, you know, looking around, and we saw, I found the latest one. It started at 11:15 a.m. because we were still partying. We had the UFC parties and people and our instructors, and we didn't want to cramp our lifestyle, but, you know, trying to get life straight, which in retrospect is hilarious, but it was part of our journey. And so we start, and thank God we did. And we met so many wonderful people, and we end up at this embrace group at the time. And I meet two sober women who are happy and sober. I'm like, you don't, first of all, you don't say that out loud. Second of all, you're not happy about it. You should be sweeping this under the rug. We don't talk about that. And fortunate for me, I knew who to go to when I needed help. And I'll never forget, my husband was so bad when I signed us up for this. And he's like, we already go on Sundays. Why do we need to go another day of the week? And fast forward where we are now, that's such a hilarious statement. So anyway, we're in there. We're getting our you know, our community settled. And I finally reached out to the women who I knew I could get help from. And they introduced me to my recovery program that I have over 10 years sober in now, but it didn't stick right away. I kept trying to hide it. And then we ended up going on some women's retreat, go see some speaker, and I ended up in a car. I wasn't even driving. We got in a car accident on the way home, about an hour away. It was just devastating. Like, no one wants a phone call like that from anyone that, you know, family member's been in an accident, but everything was okay. But it was just another accident, and we added more to my injury from when I got rear-ended when I moved down here. And when I just couldn't do what I was doing for a living anymore. So that was it. I was just running at all the administrative work, but I couldn't, everything I thought made me, whether it was working out or being in shape, or, you know, I'm the I got it girl. I can take care of everything myself, self-sufficiency. And so the alcoholism just spiraled down here so easily. And I had the right people put in my path at the right time. And so I finally, you know, went to meetings. First, it was just get everyone off my butt. Like, here's my coin, here's my Bible, leave me alone. And I just went through the motions until I couldn't anymore. And I got to the point where I just, I was still lying. I was still, oh gosh, the insanity of it all. But there was a day in which where I came home and my husband just knew. It was like, we never fight. Oh my God. I'm so fortunate to have such a saint for a husband. The only time I ever fought was when I was drinking. And we talk sternly, as my daughter says. We don't fight, we talk sternly, intensely, passionately. And we have a unique relationship because you have to have a certain kind of partnership to build business together and to do what we've done. But anyway, so I got to the point where I came home and he just gave me that look, and I was like, oh, and we talk every day. Like, even now driving to work, we're always on the phone, best friends. And him not talking to me, I just knew I did it. I was like, great, that's it. And he got to the point where he's like, we're not getting divorced, but if you keep doing this, I can't watch you do it anymore. And I knew it. I had pushed the boundary as far as it would go. And for me, that was my bottom. Everyone's very different, but for me, that was it. And I finally, I'm alone in the middle of the night, and hands thrown up in the air. Everyone's pretty much doesn't even know what to do anymore. I've just lied to all the people I go to church with, like the insanity of it all. And finally just knelt down. I hit my head, my face to the floor, and just finally asked God, like, I'm done. Can you just help? And that was a point at which where it was the compulsion, that drive, whatever was inside me, whether it was good, bad, ugly. I never needed a reason to pick anything up, but I always found one. And didn't even know why. But that's the addiction of it all. That's the insanity of it. And just remember that being the beginning of my journey. And it was a Tuesday. So I went to a meeting that day, and a women's meeting, and they all told me, you never have to feel like this again. And I had known that, but I never actually felt it. And I live in an area where it's so many retired people. So here I'm around all these old people who are like, wow, I wish I had gotten it when you did, in my early 30s. And so I got the opportunity to start my life again, because at that point I was just so suicidal. I just wanted to, like, I can't keep putting people through this, keep disappointing everyone, and I can't get this. And so finally it was just, I was done, and the miracle happened. But the hard work came along, and so I had to start cleaning out the cobwebs and working my steps and going to meetings. And I even went from being, here I am semi-retired to now I worked in a retail job. And the person who sponsored me the first time goes, "Are you a morning person?" I said, "No." She's like, "Well, now you are." And so I had to go to morning meetings and get this humble, oh my gosh, the retail job at a local, you know, outdoor mall and sell handbags to women who I'd normally socialize with. It was, in my world, so embarrassing, but I had to learn how to like get up on time, listen to other people, and work well and play well with others again and start that journey. And so one job led to another. So I did that for a year and then finally got my second recovery job where I started working with nonprofits. And through all this time here, my husband and I are very involved in our church at the time. I'm on the board. I'm voluntold onto the board almost immediately. My husband's put on the worship team and we're transforming the church one through all of this. And fast forward, me being sober, and now my husband's the lead pastor, and I am 10 and a half years sober, and we're running a church together. And we've just been doing this for so long now. But his journey, he went from having money be his obsession to transforming into ministry and his own learning disabilities and transforming through that. So he's got his own amazing story that's gotten him to where he is. But honestly, to help everyone out, it's like I don't compete with anyone else's journeys. Mine's my own, but I truly love being able to share all the information that I've gathered. I love researching, and my whole point in getting to Valor Vixens first, it started with Fat Chicks Laugh Last to Runway for the rest of us because, fashion at the time was only for stick figures and tall, skinny women. And I have a tall, skinny daughter who I was like, oh gosh, sometimes it's just genetic. Not my genes by any means of the imagination, but just struggling with your weight. And I've just done so much research and the mental, the physical, the chemistry, and all the different things, and self-improvement, and being self-employed, and being the back-end administrator, and all the different parts of my life. I'm on my third career now, but that fire inside of me since I'll never forget where I was sitting in my classroom that day where I was like, I am meant for so much more than just this. And I don't know what it is. I've been plugging away at it for now almost 2 decades. And in my journey, I crossed, because I always have to move on to the next challenge. I always need some kind of competition because it's just who I am. And my husband's like, oh my God, please, can you just like finish a competition and just do this for the sake of doing it because you love yourself? I'm like, but I don't yet. And, and that's again, where I'm at, is just helping women find and feel the value in themselves without needing it from anyone else. Happiness is an inside job, and really working them through how to transform. And one thing that I've learned, and my story will, reveal itself through all these future podcasts moving forward. But the biggest takeaway at this point is that there's never a one-stop shop. It's not a quick fix. These things take time, which is one of my husband's favorite sayings. But these things take time, consistency, and everyone, including myself. I want it now. I don't care how I've ruined my body. I don't care if I've made horrible decisions. I want to look perfect tomorrow. And that's just not reality. It's really not. But what I found is, and this is why insert Valor Vixens is, like I said, I'm such a competitive person. I was considered the emasculator. I love fighting. We watch the show Vikings, and I'm like, that is my woman, man. If I'd be like a Viking queen. And that was, it came to me and I was like, oh, maybe shield maiden warrior, like shield maiden. I'm like, it's complicated for people to understand. And so thank goodness for AI. I was trying to look for a name to land on. And so here came Valor Vixens. And I was like, yes, we are going to conquer our life one day at a time. So my goal and all of the ups and downs and insanity of the things that I've been through, at least in my life. And like I said, I don't compete with anyone. Everyone's had their own journey to get them to where they are today. You look in the rearview mirror, you don't stare at it because you're going to crash. But how do we move forward? How do we conquer our life one day at a time? And so what has worked for me, finally, after plugging away at, okay, I'll just work on my weight, or I'll just do this, I'll just do that, and finally realizing, master one thing first. It's like a foundation. You can't build the roof before you dig the foundation. Find a good spot. Like, you cannot skip steps. That it just doesn't work, which is why it doesn't work. And so I was applying the same insanity to trying to get to my goals like I did every other time. So pageant, I'd lose weight, get in shape, be on stage in a bathing suit, and then go back to drinking, eating, and F it mode is what we call it. And then starting all over again. And and the insanity, I call it the merry-go-round of insanity, where I just up and down, round and round. And I just got sick and tired of it. So, I put the drink down and I have to deal with my food. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And the one thing, and this is probably where I have such a different level of compassion, is between our food industry being filled with toxic, like just so much stuff we should not be ingesting, our mental upbringing, our self-hate, all of these different things, is trying to figure out how do we come to who we want to be and live our full potential and be the best versions of ourselves for ourselves, not for anyone else. And that is a multi-pronged attack. And that's what I learned in my recovery and what I'm so passionate about sharing with so many women around me. Like I could cry. I have such an amazing group of women around me between my church and my recovery, and finally letting people see who I truly am, to help them find themselves, and to get to the point where I can share the steps and help them. You're not going to skip steps, but I'll help you navigate where not to waste your time. And so this is a lifestyle. This is learning how to master one thing at a time, doing it well, and then building on it. And like I said, if I loved Legos as a kid, and they're so much better now than they used to be. I'm so jealous. Is you have to start with the base first. You cannot put the roof on before there's a house. And I was always of the impression that I just want the roof. I don't care I'm going to skip all the steps. And so I'd go on the next fad diet, the next competition, and then fall on my face again and gain 20 pounds, lose 30, gain 20 back, and then be up and up and up and up. And finally, finding something that worked. And for me, what it was is mental, physical, and spiritual, and fixing one thing at a time. And my goal on this journey is to share my journey with you, help you find tangible, concrete tools that will help you build a better life, one goal at a time. That's tangible. Getting that done right. And I'm a woman, I'm tough love. I got a lot more male in me. Listen, I was a zookeeper. I was a female amongst hundreds of men in MMA industry. I know I come across very direct, very blunt, very, I don't know what the word is. It can be a little harsh. It can hurt sometimes. But one thing I've learned, I need that tough love. No one's going to tell you, I'm not going to tell you what you need to hear. I'm going to tell you what, I said that backwards. There goes my dyslexia. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. Because let me tell you from experience, when someone tells you what you want to hear, they don't love you. People who truly love you, and this always hurts when someone tells you the truth. Like I said, with my stepmother, the mama that had that stung. But there was some truth to it. Whenever you hear the truth, it always zings so hard when there's a little bit of truth to it, because you're not willing to look at it. But with the right group of people, and this is what I've been so fortunate in my adult life, and this is why I think it's taken 20 years for me to finally, I wasn't ready for it at 25. I had to come through so much. First of all, getting sober, one of many things, and doing the research that I need to do. And I've got 20 years of personal education, all the different things that I've gathered, and in all the people I've met, all the tools and the time that I have, the fortunate ability that let me be the one to guide you through this journey. Let me help you build the network of women around you, how to clear out the toxicity, how to establish boundaries. This is going to be the journey of a lifetime, because let me tell you that we only get one life, and it's a beautiful thing if you start learning how to live it on your terms and clean out your mind, your body, your spirit, and it's a three-pronged attack. And so I'm going to be giving you directions and tools and really meaningful and concrete, tangible tasks and goals to work on that will help you transform your life. Like that's why I came to the Conquer Your Life One Day at a Time, and um, I managed to do this. I have, my friend who last year I did another competition, and more of it was just to win for myself. There was a cash prize. I did not win. I keep trying at it. The Sculpted Vegan. I love it. The woman who runs it, Kim Constable, is just, she's my kind of woman. I even joked with my husband. I'm like, you were right, but I needed to hear it from a woman to be able to listen to it. And so she pointed me in the direction of Amy Porterfield, which has now brought me through the journey in which that I got the motivation to hit record this morning. This idea came about last year, and I started getting in shape, and I met this woman through my church, and she's got 3 kids, and her husband's in law school, and I've gone through hey, let me take you to the grocery stores. I can show you how to eat healthier, and now we work out together, and our walking through life together with another person has been such a beautiful experience. And so what I want to do is help you, first of all, become whole from the inside out again. I want you to clean out the toxic people that are bringing you down. I want to help give you the tools that I've found to really, truly make you the best version of yourself. And so I'm listening to podcasts, I'm reading books, and here I am now in perimenopause, and all the journeys of life, from being a college student, entrepreneur, semi-retired, unemployed, unemployable, to self-employed again, and where I am now. My job right now, besides doing this in this spare time, what that looks like is I do administrative work for nonprofits, my church, and I'm a EAPA for an individual in the local area. And I feel like I'm like the Mary Poppins. And so I love finding information to help people out. Like, honestly, when I'm coaching someone or talking to someone or lifting them up, I never feel so much more alive than doing that. It really sparks that passion that's been in me for literally my entire life. Like, if someone's fell on the playground, I'm the first one to run to make them feel better. And so that being my journey is now here full circle. And so what I can't wait to do on this journey is to share who I am, first of all, which is what I've done for the past hour now, and keep revealing and helping you get comfortable with who you are, looking in the mirror, cleaning out those cobwebs. I've even picked up going to therapy. I have my recovery meetings. I have my church family. But again, this is where I want to share my journey and to help you walk through not being so scared. And honestly, we joke because, Wicked is out now, and, follow the yellow brick road. And it's, okay, so where do I start? At the beginning, the first step. And now, like I said, the scariest thing I think I've almost ever done was hit record on this message. But, and I've shared it in church. My video's up, and you can see my weight change. And, but you can't start if you don't start, and you can't change if you don't change. And, I constantly have to follow my own advice, but this is a journey of all of us as women, lifting each other up, helping each other, really truly building a tribe of those to be the best you and clean out the nonsense, I don't know, knowing that no is a complete sentence, what's best for your kids, just getting in tune with yourself and the world around you. And for me, my spiritual walk has been huge, but everyone's on their own journey. And again, I'm going to be giving you information, and what you do with it will be your choice. I'm truly a believer. No, I'm personally competitive, but I've stopped competing with anyone else but with myself, because it just doesn't help. Everyone's got so many natural abilities in so many different ways that how can I be the best version of me and push myself to the best version of myself? If I'm at the gym, can I lift a little heavier? Can I do it a little bit longer? Whatever the case is. And also knowing when to pull back, when to rest. That elusive that elusive idea of balance. I always joke that balance is like trying to catch a butterfly with no net, but it's pretty much impossible. But you can find somewhere in the middle. And but trying to get to the end goal before you take the first step, it just doesn't work. You have to learn how. I know it's so cliche. You have to crawl before you stand, before you walk, before you run, before you sprint. And honestly, all of us kind of end up back into the slow walk as we get to the end of the journey. Um, but I want to help make this journey in life as, as beautiful and as uh, wonderful and purposeful as it can be. So if you feel lost, I don't know, if you're just a human living in this world as a mom who can't figure out how to balance a budget, when to eat, you're tired. Life has just gotten the best of you, which is, we're living in, I mean, the world's always been chaotic. I was a history major. There's never been a time where things are fantastic. Like we're humans. There's always something. Um, but really what I'm sharing with you more than anything is the transformation of learning how to say the four-letter word that has, for me, been one of the hardest things in the entire universe is help. Knowing when I have a shortcoming and knowing how to ask for help. I still work on that all the time. Like I said, I'm a self-sufficient girl and I got a girl. But if I keep taking on all the tasks, there's a point at which we're either, and I've shared this with other women, but if you don't decide what comes off your plate, someone's going to decide it for you. And so life is overwhelming, kids, husbands, whatever it is, life is life. And so many of us come from so many different backgrounds, but really we all have the same amount of time in a day and we all have today and the future. It's the one thing we all have in common besides just being humans in this world today. But navigating kids with social media and good nutrition and, like I said, just whether it's an ailing parent or health issues. I've oh my gosh, I had to go to doctors with geriatric people in my 30s. Like, oh my gosh, the things I've been through. But in my world, I love and I've learned to share my mess to make it my message. Because what I've looked at as previously, like, why did I have to go through that? Now I look at it and I'm like, wow, I get to share the roadmap with someone else. Like, here are the landmines. This is how you avoid them. Like, how can I help? And then how can you find someone to help? And, we call that discipleship in our world, but sharing the journey, because why not? Why, if you hold it in, it doesn't help anyone. And for me, that's been truly my passion. I think since, like I said, I wanted to be a pediatrician, that ship sailed. I wanted to be a fashion designer. I tried that, but now here I am in my mid 40s, starting a whole new journey in life. But I think right place at right time, and it finally has all culminated into the beginning of a wonderful step forward that if I can do it, anyone can do it. Like I said, every odd was against me. Teenage pregnancy, poor kids, you name it. Like, I literally statistically should have been, honestly, dead at this point. But I had the right people around me. And this time around, I want to help you avoid some of the pain and just insanity and help get to the better version of yourself sooner than later, because it is truly freeing, and it's almost, like I said, I can't even think of a word for it. To be able to find people who you can truly love and share life with, genuinely so, and be yourself. Like I said, I used to have a version of a person that was at work, and a version on the weekends, and a version for my business. And, there were so many different versions of me that now they're all one and the same. And, being able to feel comfortable letting people in, and that's just so hard. So now, as we navigate this world of this ever-changing technologically and what we're head for, but at the end of the day, we all lay our head on the pillow at night, and we have to live with ourselves. And what does it look like thereafter? And so, like I said, the three things that I've learned that are all have to kind of be in line. And so my goal is going to be helping you know where to start and how to tackle it is spiritual, physical, and mental, and how one plays into the other. Honestly, I think the key, well, obviously, with where I'm at spiritually, I'll be pointing you in the right directions. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life spiritually. I'm going to give you the direction to go in at your own pace with that. Because that is truly, probably for me especially, I didn't get baptized as a kid. I got to choose that as an adult. That's a journey for everyone to decide for themselves with where they're at. And so I'll be sharing my story, and you can do with it what you will with your own journey in life. and have that freedom and opportunity to do that, because that's truly a very intimate relationship between you and, you know, your spirit and soul inside. For me, it's Jesus. It's God. It's a key component to where I am today. Um, so, like I said, that's my story and where I've come, and so I'll be pointing you in directions on where to go if you when you want to start traveling down the road, and so that I'll be here for you for that. Mental, honestly, I think that's the biggest thing is I kept hitting physical, thinking, okay, if I just lose weight, I'm going to be happy, blah blah blah. So I kept putting the physical things first, not realizing that they're all intertwined. And so mental, honestly, and tangible, meaningful goals and tasks to start on to build upon good habits and good relationships. That's what I'm going to be here for you for, and guiding you through it. So you can take it or leave it. I've learned, I know I'm not going to make everyone happy, and not everyone's going to be a fan. Not everyone's going to like what I have to say. But I'm me, and I'm comfortable with that now. And I hope you can too if you want to come on this journey with me. I'm so excited to embark on it now that I have finally hit record and put my life out there, and I'm going to start this. Honestly, funny enough, it already is on film for everyone to see. But even more so now in a very direct and unique direction that I really am so excited to be here. So first of all, like I said, this is the introduction. There are going to be so many more moving forward. And as I keep walking through my self-improvement and my goals and finding this information out for you, I want you to please, first of all, subscribe. I can say that now. You can subscribe to my channel, follow along, and let me know what you want to work on. What do you need to know? Do you need, like I said, I've learned so much about nutrition and working out and now hormones and mental disorders and learning disabilities and having been a teacher. And there are just so many components in life that I love learning. I love learning more about it, and I love sharing what I've learned. It's kind of why I became a teacher, but now here I am in my adult life, utilizing my natural abilities in a way that where purpose meets passion, and I can actually turn this into something that becomes tangible for the women who want to listen. Like I said, I know I'm not gonna make everyone happy, but I'm here. I'm me, and I'm laying down and taking off the mask. And so here I am. We're going to go on this journey together. I hope you come along with me, whatever that looks like, wherever you want to take that first step. And I'm just so excited. I'm so excited to finally get this under my belt, move forward. And I'm going to, yeah, I know I keep saying I'm excited, but I have so many women that I've been able to, had the opportunity to befriend that I can't wait to introduce you to. Bring on. We're going to have videos and podcasts and tips and tricks, whether it's fashion, whether it's yoga, whether it's working out. It's so many things. They're just really funny people. I've met them along the way. I even know somebody who's a professional stunt double. Like the people that I've come across is just, I've been blessed. And so I can't wait to share their personalities, their journey with you, and how we all are just doing life together, and what that looks like, and how you can build that network in your own life and start feeling some of the freedom and peace that I have found for myself after between my own personal struggles, life on life, people, getting over resentments and forgiveness. And like I said, we're going to touch on all of those wonderful things. And so this is a multifaceted journey that's going to take so many twists and turns that I really hope that you come along for the ride with me, and you gather other people who want to embark on this journey with you, and really truly become the best versions of yourself for yourselves. Learn how to self-love and fix those holes in your soul that have just been lingering and relieving pressure. Like I said, even if you had a perfect childhood, you won the lottery, parents, whatever the case is, but life has got you down, or traffic still annoys you, or how do I get my kids out the door on time? Like, name it. Like, I'd love for everyone to throw topics at me. Let me do some research. Let me be that for you. And we'll just embark on this together. So there is no limit to what we can accomplish as long as we put our minds to it. And so with the right support system and the right people around you, your purpose becomes your passion, and all of those things can become one, and you can be the best version of yourself, and feel that today, regardless of what you think you should be. And we'll talk about that too. Um, the illusions. And so anyway, my name is Heather. This is Valor Vixens. This is the introduction to the beginning of our journey together. Come along with me, and I guarantee your life will never be the same again. And so God bless you, and I can't wait to have you join me next time.